you're in Austin, Texas, fastest growing city in the country. And then you've got companies moving in, large tech companies. There's a spotlight on Austin right now. What's that like as a designer designing in Austin?
It's pretty amazing. It's seeing the process of the skyline even changing. I call it our big little city because it is one of those cities that I feel like I can go anywhere by myself. If I was going to meet somebody for happy hour or they weren't there for 30 minutes, I would still go to that place and be by myself and run into like 10 different people I knew.
I was up last night thinking about like everything you've overcome in the last 10 years. Or you can say overcome, things that transformed you. I mean, beat cancer, Bo, right? You become a mother when you weren't even sure you could, right? And then you almost lose your son.
I guess with Bo, like it's one of those things that we knew we would be happy even if we didn't have any kids, because we have a lot of nieces and nephews, we have godchildren. When you guys go to the basketball game, you'll see we have so much love from players and kids. So we got to the point where we're like, okay, if we have a kid, we have a kid. If we don't, we don't. We're gonna be happy. We love each other anyways. And so when we found out we were pregnant, like it was just, I mean, it was mind blowing. I made a comment, I can't remember who I was talking to about it, but I'm like, well, I haven't been through anything. And then they're like, well, no, you've been through plenty. Because sometimes I just keep going. Like I don't dwell in that past, but it does help shape who I am like here right now.
And then just this past year, 2020, the self-discovery in terms of understanding your place in racial justice, equity. I mean, I don't know what else, what more transformation you can sustain or go through. And I remember specifically you saying, like, Doug, I really hope this isn't just a flash in the pan. Like, I really hope that the movement towards equity and inclusion is truly a movement.
When you start to think about diversity in design and then well, why am I an interior designer? Like if I didn't see anybody who looked like me, like why did I become a designer? Well, my dad was in outside sales, and so he sold building supplies. So I grew up with like sheetrock and like studs and things like as samples and playing with them. And then going and driving around if he had to do claim calls or anything, seeing that, he was like his product was on that home and that I could be part of that building and process. As a designer, I do hope that people realize that we're a legit profession. Like, and I feel like that doesn't have to do with the color of your skin. Or I believe that once people realize that you can go to college for interior design, that you can become a licensed designer, that you work in spaces that are the healthcare spaces, and I feel like then that might help with the diversity part. So if we can continue to let parents know that whenever their little brown girl comes home and says, I want to be an interior designer, that their mom's like, well, you want to be on HGTV? It's like, no, I can go to college and I can do all these other things. And so I think that's part of it too. It's like always advocating for what we do. So that's one of the big things that I'm hoping for our industry, is that we can continue to advocate for what we do.
When you were talking about your parents growing up and your grandparents building this house, owning this land on the Black side of town, there was something that I thought I was hearing for the first time when you were talking about the intentionality behind some of the segregation.
Oh, yeah.
And when you don't think about that, but like, wow, the role that architecture and design actually played in this, right? It's like, whoa, nobody really speaks about that. But that really piqued my interest in terms of just like, man, there's a whole story there that's really not being told, that is a shameful story, right?
It gave me the chills, because I'm glad you brought this up, because I didn't know how we would discuss it. And like, so, we're designers, so we see it that way. But yes, design has played a role in thinking, like when I watch a documentary and I see, the colored restrooms or the colored water fountains, my thought is a designer had to think about that. They had to physically draw separation of people based on the color of somebody's skin on a set of blueprints and putting that together, and like the thought process of being, some of those designers are probably still alive, or architects are still around and alive. Like that's a part, my mom was part of that, where she knew that, she couldn't go into the department store through the front door. So
yeah, that is a whole world out there that is just shocking. Tell me, what is the most rewarding part of your career as a designer?
I think the most rewarding part is creating, but then also like being able to inspire other people when they walk into the space or make them feel like a certain way. So it's all about the human connection. And I think having people come into your space and knowing that they're gonna be taken care of is important to me. So I'm inspired by the users and the people that are actually physically using the space, because if it can be pretty, but it can be uncomfortable. It can be pretty, but it can't be functional. So I think that why I love what I do. And honestly, the reason I'm a designer is because I like people. And it's team. I always say I can tell somebody who's played a team sport when we're working in the design space. So I'm working with contractors, I'm working with architects, I'm working with lighting consultants, I'm working with my flooring reps or installers, I'm working with my furniture dealers. So there's a lot of different players, and it's not just, there's no I in team. You are working with all these different consultants and team members to come together to create a space. And that's the beauty of it. It's never, when you see something, you think about all those different players and how they communicated to execute it.
I just love that quote. I went into design because I like people.
We're not always designing the Taj Mahals or the things that are in the interior design magazines. Like, I have to remember that too, as me as and I say simple designer, but a functional designer is okay, and that's enough. And it's enough because it helps people with their spaces. So those are things I have to remember.
My name is Cedric Van Gersten.
I'm Sean Sullivan. I'm a partner at the Rockwell Group.
And you are here in Wayan, a restaurant located in Soho. My wife is from Indonesia. We have several restaurants in Jakarta, and we've been traveling there for the last 10 years. In New York City, there's no really Indonesian restaurant. So we're like, it'd be interesting. We would be very excited to kind of bring those flavor and this concept in New York City.
With Cedric and Ochi, his wife, they pour so much passion into what they do that the design process really begins with them.
We were working with Rockwell and Sean's team. They had a good sense of exactly what we wanted, the style, the elements of the stone, the wood, and the greenery. And as soon as we start laying down the plans and putting it all together, it was, they knew exactly what we wanted, and it's incredible. It's like as soon as you walk in Wayan, it's like you're traveling back in Bali.
We got really inspired by, just creating a local and authentic restaurant that at the same time feels at home in this neighborhood. The space itself is a really authentic neighborhood building.
We really like the layout of this building. As you walk in inside the restaurant, you have the first room. There's a little bit of dining room space, but the bar and all the greenery on top of it. As you make your way in the back dining room, there's a little corridor, and you have all the spices that we use and the little display of ingredients. Then a little seating area in front of the kitchen where you can see the light kitchen, and then you have the back main dining room on the back.
The bones of it are already there, and what we did is we added a bunch of layers that we had built in Indonesia and shipped over. Combining the two, we sort of had a fusion of both this Indonesian style and this local kind of New York restaurant. The idea of the food and the menu is something that we developed in parallel with the design.
The vision with the cuisine, I mean, it's from all the memories and travels going to Indonesia. So it's just eating, trying things and exploring and going to those remote islands and going to those little fisherman area, and you taste something like this is incredible. And from that memory and trying to remember those flavor, recreating that, it's all presented in beautiful handcrafted bowls and plate, and everything is put in the middle of the table, and we recommend to share with all the table.
He's taken, I think, those inspirations, and I think he's dialed it into sort of fun, shareable plates and menu items for sort of a New York customer. Someone who wants to go out and taste something that really transports them to somewhere else, but also feels sort of familiar.
We're very lucky and blessed with our neighborhood here. We were very well received.
One thing that I really love about this neighborhood is I think it's one of the most iconic neighborhoods in the world. Every time we get the opportunity to work in Soho, it's hard not to be inspired by the architecture you're given as the basis of a lot of your design. Because the architecture you're given is they're all very different, but they all have such amazingly interesting New York bones that only could happen in New York.
I'm Kenny Greenberg. We're at Krypton Neon in Long Island City, New York. Krypton Neon was founded in 1981 in Long Island City, and we manufacture neon lighting, signs, special effects. The majority of our clients for years have been Broadway productions. I fell into this in a strange path because I'd sort of always been groomed to be an engineer, but I also really enjoyed art. I enjoyed cartooning and scribbling around, and I was looking for some way to combine the two. Once I learned that human beings made neon, a light went off, no pun intended. I mean, I actually had a history with Long Island City. My father had a consulting job on the weekends here, and one of the things I loved, apart from all the trains that were here in Long Island City, were the neon signs. The big swing line stapler, and of course the Pepsi sign, and so on. The transformation of this neighborhood is very interesting. When I first arrived, I used to tell people I lived in the country because it was incredibly rural. One of my favorite things was that there were all these factories that actually had very good relations with all the neighbors and all the people, and I used to pride myself in being able to get any color glass that I needed. Long Island City in the past and today have always been different from the other arts communities. This was the first neighborhood I'd been in where I felt that there were working artists in the sense of that they had viable commercial careers along with their creative careers, which also dovetails with what I do. Now, real estate is just at such a premium. We have no way of knowing what the survival of artists in this neighborhood will be. So I guess it dies and comes back and dies and comes back, which is a lot like neon.
Here we are, Location Luxe. I'm your host, Alan Canas, and here in season 1, we'll be focused on what we're calling the Great Lifestyle Migration. On each episode, I'll be right here in San Francisco, Silicon Valley. Over the last few decades, we've witnessed a great migration for employment and technology development. As such, the need and demand for homes has been among the highest in the country. These migration choices are giving people an extraordinary opportunity to explore new locations, amenities, and lifestyle options. And that's why we're here. Location Luxe. This week, I'm a little jealous to welcome my next guest, Dennis Rush. Not because he's a top Realm referral partner, and not because he's a top real estate agent, it's because he does all of it from one of my favorite Hawaiian islands, Maui. Dennis, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Alan, aloha from Maui.
Aloha, Dennis. I am so green with Maui envy every time we speak. You know, the Four Seasons and the Fairmont Cabanas are calling my name every time we talk. Dennis, before we get started, I would like for you to tell me a little bit about you, a little bit about your business, and where are you right now? It's beautiful. You know, your background, I'm seeing windsurfing.
Actually, they're paddle boarders and kayakers, and where we are, we're in South Maui, which is the McKenna Resort. And the actual spot where I am right now is where my wife, Martha, and I got married many years ago. We're at our friend's private residence on Maui in the McKenna Resort. And it's absolutely gorgeous. I think you can see that's Kahalavi and Molokini, and just absolutely a beautiful setting, another beautiful day on Maui.
So Dennis, how long ago did you get to Maui?
About 30 years ago, Alan. I moved here from California. My grandparents were born and raised on the Big Island. And I ended up moving to Maui. I was in the clothing business prior and lived in Palos Verdes and had an office in Hong Kong, an office in New York, was in the corporate life, ended up selling my business to my partner, moved to Maui, and I've never looked back.
You are truly living the dream.
Yes, we are, very much so.
So tell us a little bit about your business.
When I first came to Maui, I opened a luxury real estate boutique called Results and had that company for many years. And then I decided to go with a company that was representing developers for luxury properties in the South Maui and the Wailea and McKenna areas, and did that for a number of years. And then most recently joined Compass as their first founding agent in Hawaii. And very happy to do so.
Can you talk a little bit about the seasonal activities and maybe about the Hawaiian cultural activities?
Sure. We're fortunate to have the first PGA Tour here called the Century Tournament of Champions on Maui each year in January. We have the Maui Arts and Cultural Center, which we have many of the major stars and groups and entertainers come, and it's quite nice and done a very, very nice job. We have whale watching, which you say, whale watching? Okay, well, every November through April, the whales come, and it's a big deal on Maui because you see the whales breaching, they have their babies, and people go out on tours on boats, and then of course you have the snorkeling and all the water activities that are beautiful. And you can see behind me that this every day on Maui, ocean activities are fabulous. You have golf courses, public, semi-private, and private golf courses. You have tennis, you have pickleball, you have just about anything you want, whether you're running or cycling or walking or hiking.
People are going to be very interested to know, Maui is, has my heart, but it has surrounding islands. What are going on with the home prices from there?
As everywhere else in the world, prices are going up, very limited inventory. We have Oahu is where Honolulu is, the most populated island. We have the big island of Hawaii. We have Lanai, where you probably know Larry Ellison bought 98% of the island and has moved there. And of course we have Maui and Kauai, which is the most beautiful island. And we love it here.
So Dennis, can you tell me about Maui's price points and what people can expect to find?
Sure. We have properties here on Maui anywhere from approximately $200,000 or $300,000 up to about $60 million, depending what part of the island. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Maui has 5 microclimates. So depending where you are on the island, the prices are different, whether you're on the leeward side of the island or the windward side of the island. The leeward side is the sunset side, always the most expensive. The beaches are very calm, properties are more expensive. And in the Wailea and McKenna resorts, homes probably start around $2 million up to about $60 million. And the other thing we have here, which is very successful, are condominiums. And we have vacation rental condominiums and non-vacation rental condominiums. So people can buy a condominium and rent it out for income and for their lifestyle, or you can get a condominium that you don't rent out. And this is all based on zoning.
So Airbnb is very popular.
Yes, it is. Airbnb and many of the VRBO and all of them are very popular, yes.
And are there tax benefits that people moving from the mainland can expect?
Well, depending, of course, where you're from, the property tax rates here are much lower than the West Coast. And we have a small amount of income tax. And our excise or sales tax is 4%. So it's probably much less than most places.
Now let's talk about architectural designs. What types of architectural designs can a buyer expect to find when coming to the island?
You can find anything from Hawaiian archaeological huts to major estates, and you can find anything from 1, 2, 3 bedroom condos. You can find luxurious homes. You can find fix-em-uppers. I'm saying anything is available here. And just like anywhere else, we're in the United States. We're in the island of Maui in the state of Hawaii, and you can find pretty much anything you want with a limited inventory at this time.
And as it relates to inventory, Dennis, are buyers going to be coming up against multiple offers? And are there new housing developments that you're seeing?
Yes to both. There are multiple offers on some properties, and some you go in with one property. We had one the other day, they had 16 offers. So, you know, sometimes that happens, but it's not regular. What we've found is very interesting for the first time in all the years I've been on Maui, is we've had 7 sight unseen sales in the last 12 months. I'm talking about people coming and buying multi-million-dollar homes, sight unseen, going through with FaceTime, and then they come and visit it later. Last night, for example, we had a family from North Carolina who bought a home last year and came and saw it just a few days ago for the first time and came to our home for dinner last night, the whole family. It was very nice, and that's what's going on in this world today.
And Dennis, are most of those all cash, or are those being financed?
I would say probably 60–70% are cash and some are financed.
And Dennis, where are these buyers primarily coming from?
We're finding that our market is mostly West Coast and Canada. The Canadians come here quite a bit. Oh. They can come to the United States for 6 months a year, and from all over Canada they come to Maui because there's direct flights. So we have people from the West Coast, Seattle, Portland, all up and down California, direct flights from Phoenix, Dallas, Chicago, Denver, all kinds of places that you wouldn't believe. And it's amazing how people are coming, because on the West Coast, it's 5.5 hours coming to Maui, direct flight, 4.5 hours going back. So it's very easy.
Also, tell me a little bit about what's going on with the schools, because I know you're having families moving.
Of course, we have a private school system, public school system, and we also have a Hawaiian school system where the Hawaiian culture, they keep the Hawaiian culture and their language going. So we have private Hawaiian schools, private schools, and public schools. And we have what's called Seabury, which is a college prep school. So education can be very good here, and people are moving here because of the way life is going now with everyone being virtual and Zoom. They don't have to be on where they live, and they come here in a second home or actually moving here and buying a first home. We have clients that just put an offer today. They're from the Bay Area who are buying a condo and are going to end up moving here. Maui no Ko'oi. Maui's the best.
Tell us about the quality of life and the longevity of residence.
Hawaii has the #1 life expectancy of all states in the United States at 81.5 years. So you've got good health, good quality of life. You know, it's really a different place in the world. We always go by health, happiness, and wealth only in that order. And we have a gentleman, a very wealthy gentleman, very good friend of ours, who always says, and enough time to spend it. So health, happiness, and wealth, and enough time to spend it, only in that order. So that's our lifestyle here.
Dennis, tell me a little bit about the appreciation that you're seeing year after year.
Appreciation is doing very well. And again, it depends on where on the island. Oceanfront has appreciated the most. Ocean View appreciates well. The better properties, of course, appreciate well. And what's happening on Maui is there's no longer any new vacation rental condos being built. So those people that own vacation rental condos are in a very good position. The only thing that's going to be done in the future is the condos with a 6-month minimum rental.
And Dennis, is that the same for the surrounding islands as well?
Each island has different laws, but Honolulu is eliminating a lot of the vacation rentals also. Most of the islands are doing the same thing, but there's different laws on each island.
So Dennis, I ask this of everybody that comes on the show. Do you have a favorite buyer story?
Several of them.
One that you can tell.
Yes. Besides the fact of the 7 people in the last year that bought sight unseen, many years ago we had a fella where they were buying a home and the wife wanted to buy the home, the husband didn't. And so he walks out in the driveway and the wife is grabbing me and pulling on my arm and crying. She says, "Get my husband, I want this house." So I had to go out and talk him into buying the house, which he did, and they became very good friends. Another couple from Chicago found us on a website, told us that he would not spend over $995,000. Put an offer in for $995,000. He, his wife, and his daughter then flew here to see the property they had put into escrow. And the husband walked in, he's all, feeling great about everything. And the wife and the daughter walk in and they go, "Oh." So he ended up canceling and spent a lot more money. Now he has about $4.5 million on Maui in real estate. So things happen. What can I say?
Dennis, thank you for joining us on this episode of Location Luxe.
Thank you, Alan. Aloha.
Hello, my name is Brittany Chevailer McIntyre, and I'm the executive editor at Luxe Interiors and Design magazine. Thanks for tuning in to Collab Lab on DesignTV. On today's segment, we are discussing a very fun and exciting collaboration between designer Sasha Bikoff and furniture company Kindel Grand Rapids. I'd like to give a big welcome to Sasha and Dennis Granda, the Director of Design and Product Development for Kindel. To tell you a little bit more about these wonderfully talented individuals, Sasha Bikoff is known for her flawless execution of bold and colorful maximalist designs sculpted by her vast worldly exploits and experiences. Sasha's style is heavily influenced by the multicultural flair of her hometown, New York City, and from her frequent travels to Paris, Marrakesh, and Milan. For Sasha, interiors represent more than just living spaces. They evoke a distinguished lifestyle, offering individuals the unique opportunity to turn their homes into an eclectic, creative oasis. Dennis Granda, currently the Director of Design and Product Development with Kindel, has been with the company for over 10 years and is responsible for overall product direction and styling, custom design, custom quoting, showroom layout, and customer services. An accomplished and innovative design professional with an extensive background in product design for the home, Dennis has an outstanding reputation within the industry for creative ideas, superb work quality, and problem solving. So thank you both so much for being here with me today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you. It's so exciting.
So exciting. So I love this collaboration. First, Dennis, I'd like to start off with you. Can you please tell me a little bit more about Kindel and the company itself?
Yeah, I'd be glad to.
Yeah, please.
Sorry.
And please,
yeah.
let me just announce that you have an anniversary coming up this year, correct?
We do. We are celebrating our 125th year of manufacturing furniture here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We have been we started out producing convertible beds, if you can imagine that. I think the Kindel family owned the patent on that back in the day, in the late 1800s. Today, we're a small company, but we still produce high-end case pieces, dining tables, dining chairs, occasional tables, and upholstery. Along with our own product line, we also are heavily involved with custom furniture. And we are geared towards the interior design trade. We know how to cater to that business, especially from a custom design standpoint. Everything in our product line and under the Kindel umbrella, there is council furniture, there is Cargus furniture, and council contract, along with the Kindel furniture line. We're a small company. We pride ourselves in the quality of our artisans and craftsmanship, and the quality that we've produced is well known within the industry.
Now, Sasha, I'd love to hear about your connection to Kindel and, specifically Dorothy Draper. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, when I first became an interior designer in New York, I remember going into the Kindel showroom at the New York Design Center and just being in awe of all the furniture and the colors, the craftsmanship and the style. I think that for a very long time, I was so enamored and influenced by Dorothy Draper. And I always kind of considered myself like a modern Dorothy Draper, as we both kind of loved this Baroque style, this Hollywood Regency 1950 style. And when I think about Kindel and I think about Dorothy Draper and all the furniture for their collection, it immediately brings me back to like the Slim Aaron's glamorous time in the 1950s. And I think about Palm Beach and I think about Beverly Hills. And I always like to say that I kind of like to teleport and transport people through my interiors. So I felt that Kindel as a company really took you to this special place that you can only imagine in your dreams, a place that I unfortunately only had gotten to experience through pictures and movies. And so when I had this opportunity to create this piece for Kindel, I was so excited. And I said to myself, okay, I'm going to put myself in Dorothy Draper's shoes. And I'm really going to be this like kind of modern Dorothy Draper. And I'm going to get to work with such an iconic American furniture company. And I felt, really blessed. And it was kind of like, a bucket list job opportunity for me.
Absolutely. So my next question is, how did this partnership come to be, and how did you first connect with Kindel, and then Dennis with Sasha?
Yeah, so I think that, I'm a customer of Kindel, and I've always loved the pinwheel chests and the Espana chests, and they're pieces that I often use in my interiors. And during What's New, What's Next at the New York Design Center, I was on a panel at the Kindel showroom where we took our panel discussion into this beautiful like fretwork canopy bed that they make. And we were having cocktails in the bed and talking all about design, and it was kind of like just this fabulous situation. And then the company contacted me and said, hey, would you like to design a piece for us and kind of be a brand ambassador? And I obviously said yes, I would love to. It's not often that you get to work with a brand that you also really respect and that inspires you. And I think that for me, it was kind of just like a match made in heaven.
Dennis, what about Sasha made you want to collaborate with her?
Well, what I liked about Sasha the most is her use of color. And as she mentioned, well, Kindel's finishing techniques and capabilities, we excel in color. There's a lot of companies out there that do good finishes and do good painting, but we excel at it. So from that standpoint, it was a good marriage between Kindel and Sasha. Also, I was really impressed with her choice of vintage furniture. And that's what we at Kindel, we do have some transitional and somewhat contemporary things, but mostly it's a vintage look. And almost all of Draper is very vintage, but it can fit in today's environment, just as it did in the 40s and the 50s when it was first introduced.
Absolutely. Now, can you walk us through the collaboration and the product making process from, conception and idea phase to the production and final finishing stages? Yeah. Either of you, please. Yeah.
So again, like Kindel has this amazing power to create beautiful colored finishes on their furnishings. So I knew right away that I wanted to do something colorful. And I was really inspired by Dorothy Draper's Espana chest, the gold detail, the cabinet handles that she used, and it had that little ruffly edge on it. And I kind of wanted to create a Sasha Bikoff fresh, modern version of that. Like Dennis said, I think that, with Kindel, the thing about the furniture is that it is so classic, but because of their array of colors and finishes, you can really modernize it and you can amp it up, and it could feel, somewhat French. It could feel somewhat Italian. It could feel, 1950s meets 2021. So I was trying to kind of bridge that gap and find something that would bring all these elements together. And I came up with this idea of the loop-de-loop, which was inspired by 1950s, Italian and French style, kind of after Royer and Matagot. And my color palette was kind of inspired by the Venetian Carnival. And also we did a second one inspired by my favorite bakery in Milan called Marchesi. So I was like, thinking, okay, Dorothy Draper's furniture was inspired by the Baroque era. So, my inspiration is going to come from similar sources, but it's just going to be, my version of it. So we created this like loop-de-loop detailing, which I think is super modern and fresh, and also kind of really playful and whimsical, but it's light at the same time. And we did these little cabinet knobs that have these rings around it. That feel kind of very Italian 1950s. And the chest is an array of different colors. So on the Carnevale colorway, we have a bunch of primary colors, which also brings about a little bit of like this 1980s Italian style. And on the Marchesi one, we have more of this pastel color palette that reminds you of like a French or an Italian pastry. But all in all, I guess that this piece is definitely the grand millennial style of underneath the Kindel brand. It brings about many influences, which is that whole idea of maximalism, which is how I design. And so it started with just me drawing these little drawings as I do on my graph paper. And then I sent it all to Dennis, and then Dennis took it to life, brought it to the next level. And Dennis, I'll let you take on from how you brought this all to being.
Well, thanks. That's pretty much exactly how it started. Sasha sent us a couple of sketches, one being a loop-de-loop, and one was a lattice. And the guidelines that there was only one guideline that we gave Sasha was, this is a particular size that we do well with, 36-inch wide, and either a door or drawer cabinet, or however you want to do it. And then she came back with the lattice and then the loop-de-loop. So my role then was to take her concept sketch and then turn it into, how could we make this? So I looked at the lattice. Could this be an overlay or painting or maybe an engraving? And the same with the loop-de-loop. And then we did a proportion drawing, and then I sent them back to Sasha, and we had a little give and take on what she preferred. And then we almost seemed to be on the same page, as we really like the loop-de-loop the best. And it would have been easiest to manufacture, and it's an engraved into the drawer front. And then that is highlighted in a gold paint. And then all the different colorways on this case follow that. The loop-de-loop frames the primary colors, then the case is a white color, and then the front frame is also a different color. So the challenge on our part was, how do we mask off all of these colors and make it look like it's supposed to look, the way it's supposed to look? And especially with all the curves and the loop-de-loop and with the straight pieces. So it was a little bit of a challenge in our finish department, but they're very skilled at this, and they pulled it off very, very well.
Was there a ton of back and forth, for this collaboration, or, was anything needed to be tweaked in the actual design, or was it just pretty much straightforward?
No, we did some back and forth. Sasha had some leg designs that we looked at, and we did sketches on the case. This is how this is going to look. What do you think? And that was probably the most challenging one, try to determine what leg we wanted to use. Would you agree with that, Sasha?
Yeah, I would say I'm super particular about feet on furniture. If the feet aren't right, then I'd rather it go straight to the ground, or I'd rather it to float, because I can't stand bad feet. And I really wanted this like pinwheel foot with this little ball at the end, because my inspiration was carnival and circus, and I was like thinking about like the seal with the little ball on its nose, and I was like, yes, this is like the little details that makes this piece fun and interesting and different. And we're working with like the best of the best, who's able to do these kinds of things and carve out these kinds of legs. So why, like, we can't fall short on these little details. So
I feel the best things, whether they be products, magazines, stories, new businesses, ideas, whatever it may be, are a result of creative collaborations, and that sort of push and pull, like you were talking about the leg. Do you find, both of you, that you produce your best work when collaborating with others, or do you really, treasure that solo inspiration time for yourself?
I think that for me, like, I really enjoy the art of collaboration, and in the sense where, like, I have a role, and I know what I can do best, and I tackle that head on, but I need a partner to help me realize that dream. And, I think that it's all fun and games when I'm scribbling and drawing something on a piece of paper, but if I want this thing to actually come to life and be used by people and enjoy and be seen in the public, it's really going to take a partner. And someone like me who's a designer, you know, I need a furniture maker and I need a company to kind of, you know, realize that for me. So I think that the art of collaboration is really important. And I always say, like, I'm an artist and you're an artist. So I'm going to do my art and then I'm going to, you know, pass it over to you and you do your thing with it too. So that was kind of my take with Kindle, and I respect the company so much and love what they do that I was so happy to, you know, put my trust in them to create, you know, such a knockout standout piece. I had an opportunity to go to Grand Rapids for the day and see the factory and see everyone working. And I was in awe of the craftsmanship by the company. And it also felt good to like work with, I'm an American designer, and you know, a lot of us, like, we shop in France, we shop in Italy, we shop all over the world, but it felt really good to shop with an American made furniture company as an American designer and seeing what beautiful things they can produce.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What about you, Dennis, about the collaborating with others or solo time?
Solo time is great also, but really to make the product happen, you need a collaboration with other people, with your peers, or with somebody who you're really not skilled with yourself, and you need that input. And you can't really be a successful designer if you close yourself off. And here at Kindle, it's all about teamwork, or else we wouldn't be where we are today. It's nice to have some alone time and do some sketching and come up with some ideas so you don't have any interference, but then when it comes down to it, you need the interjection of, you know, your engineers and people who are doing the carving and the upholstery, and it takes all of those individuals, even how we're going to buy the lumber, what species are we going to buy and what sizes and things like that. And you can't do that on your own. You really need the collaborative effort to make a product be successful.
Do each of you have a favorite part of this collaboration process together?
I would say my favorite part of the process is the finished item. When it's time to like photo shoot it and think about, you know, how we're going to display this piece and how it's going to look. And I really enjoy that process. It's really exciting to think about something in my mind and see something being drawn out on a piece of paper or a rendering. But like the real joy is when you actually see it come to life, because oftentimes it's better than you could ever imagine. And you know, we had a lot of fun photographing this piece. And creating beautiful content around these images. And for me, that was my favorite part.
I would agree with that. Even though we had been working back and forth, you know, on conference calls and emailing sketches, and where we are at this stage, and I'd send Sasha photographs of, here's a drawer front laying on a truck in the factory. And so when I picked her up at the airport the day that she came to visit us, and then took her and we saw the case where we were going to photograph it, her eyes just lit right up, and I can't describe how much joy she saw in that, and that made me feel real proud, being you know, helping her idea come to fruition like that. So that was probably the best part of this whole project so far. The next best part is when we introduced this in June at the High Point Furniture Market. So we will have 2 cases there showcased in the front room. Sasha chose the colors for the room, and we followed her suggestion. So it's going to be no pun intended, an eye-opening experience when you walk in the Kindle showroom this June.
Amazing. I meant to ask, how long did this collaboration take place for? And, you know, how long was it from start to finish?
If you don't mind my going first, you know, the play or the COVID kind of put a crutch in a little bit of it.
I'm sure.
We've, I guess, a little over a year that we started. I mean, actually, by the time we got the concepts and started getting prototypes done, that went fairly quickly. Getting it introduced has taken longer, but that's been out of our hands because of the situation in the world today.
So Sasha, when did you start talks with Kindle about this? Was it?
Yeah, it was it's been about a year.
1 year, okay.
Yeah, I think, we were all like trying to find interesting ways to introduce the product like during COVID, but I think at the end of the day, we all decided to kind of wait for market to open, and like we wanted people to really be able to see this piece in real life and enjoy it. And so I'm happy that things are starting to come back to life and open up a little bit, because it's really hard to appreciate furniture without touching it and feeling it and seeing it. And I think that, as a designer, I'm able to kind of like shop on the computer and visualize things, but with new products, you want to see new things in the flesh.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to test drive things. You want to pull out the drawers. You want to feel it. I get it. So now that you have a physical product, how are you going to go about promoting this? I know at High Point, are you, when it comes to sharing, marketing, tell me about your plan for this loop-de-loop.
Well, we're going to introduce it in High Point in June. So it'll be in our showroom, then it'll be on our website. Our salespeople will definitely have all the collateral material to hit the road with it. And then Sasha also will help us out in that.
Yeah, I will be blasting the loop-de-loop on all social channels and using it in my interiors.
So Sasha, speaking about that, how do you plan on using these pieces in your own home or in your projects?
So I envision actually changing the size that we currently have to 2 little nightstands, and I would use them in the bedroom. I think that I kind of envision that look, and I love how they will add, a burst of color and fun into the room. Great thing about this piece is that we can fully customize the colors. So depending on what my project is and who the client is, I can change the colors around. I think it would also work really well as a console in the entry with a mirror over it. Some people love that look, so that you can put like hats and scarves, and like, you have like a top for your keys and everything. I could see it being used as kind of a little dresser. So in an array of different areas, it can even be used in a living room on one side of a couch. If you have a sectional and you want to put like a big chest on the side of the couch, that's great too. People can never have enough storage. And that's why I love drawers, because it keeps everyone organized and it keeps all of your items and your tchotchkes inside and not out in the open. So I'm all about the organizational storage pieces.
Absolutely. I think it's so versatile. I think you can really use it anywhere. It's just such a statement piece, and it can be used in any room. I love it. I want one, please.
We can make that happen. Yeah.
Oh, yay. Tell me about the custom capabilities when it comes to anything that Kindle produces or makes, especially when it comes to the loop-de-loop.
That's a great question. We pride ourselves in our customization. Not only would we do a different size of an existing product, but we would make a product, and I don't like to use this term, napkin sketch, but we have done that many, many times, where it's something that we haven't even ever made before, and we will design it and help the client develop the product to use in their project. So it covers the whole spectrum of custom design here at Kindle. And the case that Sasha has worked on design lays itself perfectly for customized sizes, whether it's width, height, depth, different types of species, etc.
So can you share, I don't know if you have another collaboration with Kindle coming up, or I would love to hear about any inside information. So what's next on the docket for any collaborations?
Well, we're going to focus on this piece right now, but I'm hoping that in the future, after we roll this one out, Dennis will be calling my cell phone for round 2.
And what would you like to do?
That discussion is still up in the air right now. Like as Sasha says, we're going to introduce this, and then we know that we want Sasha to be an ambassador for Kindle Grand Rapids, and which she has agreed to do. So that's going to be a great great tool to help find out what the next project will be. And I'm sure we will have something, but it hasn't been definite at this moment, but we will be talking about it.
Well, Sasha and Dennis, it has been an absolute pleasure to chat with you both about the Loop de Loop collaboration. Thank you both so much for your time and for joining us on this Collab Lab segment. And thank you to our viewers for tuning into Design TV. My name is Brittany Chevailer McIntyre, and we'll see you next time.